Hello everyone. This isn't Pokemon, but it is something I'm passionate about. It's Marvel Rivals, it's game design, it is right up my alley. I'll talk about it in a bit. Let's talk about the character on screen, Black Widow. How are we going to fix her? 4 different ways. Let's get going. So, balancing snipers. The paradoxical nature of balance for them. First off, I want you to know why you should care about what in the world I have to say. I want you guys to picture who Black Widow is, not just exactly what she does, but what she's trying to do as a character design, whether she is well designed or not, different sniper classes in other games and variants on how that is balanced, balance recommendations, and rework concepts for the character. With that, let's get right on into it. So, am I qualified? Let's talk about it. I am a hero shooter veteran. I've played TF2 quite a lot. Highlander specifically, Overwatch games 1, 2, and kind of the current 3 situation going on, whatever you want to call it. Also lots of experience in Valorant from beta to present. Rivals, I've been playing Season 0 through 8 as a flex role of various different ranks from the metal ranks through to the mid ranks and a little bit of upper rank integration as well. I'm also a Paladins semi-pro. I did Paladins Winter League 2022 as a sub for one of the Tier 2 teams. I've been playing that game consistently from 2017 to 2025, and a bit in 20 to 26 as well. And I'm also a games analyst for some of the games as stated above, although in a much more unofficial capacity. I also have a Bachelor of Arts as a game designer, how it feels as my specialty, UX and player expression. Basically, I want to make sure that you're having fun playing the character, and you're having fun going against the character for every single character in any project that I am going to be working on. With all of that being said, I just listed off a bunch of qualifications. Does any of it matter? Does any of it matter whatsoever? No. Everyone's opinions matter regardless of qualifications. It's all about game feel, and I do not get to dictate what other people feel. Okay, moving on. Who is this? Let's talk about it. Black Widow. Primary weapons. Sniper rifle, 15 ammo, 120 damage, and about 1 shot a second. A little bit less than that, but about 1 shot a second. Basically, high damage, low interval, massive poke. The idea of sniper is to be the ultimate poke damage idea, and that is perfectly encapsulated in her main damage option. It also has fall off at 50% for 20 meters, and headshots are a ×2 multiplier, and headshots are affected by fall off. However, the scope mode does remove the fall off, which is why you would ADS on her, restrict your vision, get high damage. Her quick melee and batons both do 45 damage, just at different speed intervals. And then her abilities. Does that complement her kit at all? Her dash. It makes her speed faster, it gives her a super jump. The downside is that there's energy costs affiliated with all of it, and every single move that you use, and going into a dash, and going into a jump, and everything, and winding out of it, everything has a wind off or an end lag for some reason. Her kick and her grapple is arguably the most interesting part of her kit. And I will continue to play into that as the video progresses, but it is a 35 damage per cast. It knocks away an enemy on the first cast, and you can recast it while facing the enemy in order to grapple to them, pull yourself closer, and kick them a second time, and that second time will also knock away. You cannot redirect the kick, it will just go in the opposite direction of wherever you are coming from, but you can retarget another character or player with your second kick cast. So for example, if I were to kick, let's say, an Iron Fist away from me with my first kick, I can headshot the Iron Fist after that, doing a total of 265 damage, and on my second cast of my grapple, I can aim to a different target, let's say a Luna Snow, and grapple to the Luna Snow, and then headshot the Luna Snow in order to target 2 different characters and do 265 damage to both of them. So that is something interesting that the kick and grapple can do. It does not have to be onto the same target. Last but not least, touching on the ultimate, it is a 120 to 170 damage on charge. It grants a 4-second 15% vulnerability and an AoE slow of 55% in the cast area. Basically, it just tries to enable your headshots a little bit more, and it does mediocre-ish damage. So, what is Widow? What is her identity from what I have said so far? She is Glass Cannon Sniper. She is a ranged poke assassin, and she has very poor defensive utility, all things considered. All of her movement effects have windups or energy costs affiliated. Her damage is in very short ranges, so if you can poke from just barely outside of her range, she has no real defensive tools to use against you. And even though she has a sniper rifle, it's not going to do enough damage to save her a lot of the time unless she hits a combo, which we are going to talk about very shortly. All things put together, her shooting is much more valuable than her utility. She has very long cooldowns and very low potency at using those cooldowns effectively. Her basic positioning tools will allow her to get into stealthy spots and get into off angles, and it'll get really good flank value, and I will talk about that as an approach you should be taking while using her, but it doesn't grant her the burst movement to get out of awkward situations, so she is very all in, and there is going to be some point in the video where we play into that, and other points of the video where we lean away from that. So, her love over time. What has she gotten since the game came out? In Season 1, her sprint was made faster, her kick AoE was increased, and her ult time to charge was halved. Then her ammo was doubled, her ult slow was halved with a vulnerability added to give her better value as a poke engage tool. And then her kick and ult and lags were both reduced a little bit, but still left there. And then she got the global ult nerf a year later. She has barely gotten touched since her introduction, and she has consistently been bad over time, and that is kind of a part of the paradox of snipers, as I'm going to talk about with one of our sniper examples later on, but it's really hard to balance a sniper by not touching their damage and giving them more to do, and her kit is very limited. A part of the reason as to why that kit is limited, mind you, is because a lot of her assets are reused as a last minute addition. Her batons are Moon Knight's melee, her jump is Hulk Leap, and what are a few other examples? Her primary fire is Bucky's primary fire, but just with a significantly increased damage and slightly reduced detection range. The only real unique feature is actually the ADS's displays itself, which is very interesting to me. Besides the point. Talking about love over time, we have to talk about the team-ups. She's gotten 3 team-ups over time, and each of them have done something different for her kit. Hawkeye has granted aftermages for 8 seconds, with no headshots on the aftermages. It makes her ult a lot more valuable as a damaging tool, and it improves her ability to act as a consistent assassin. The Punisher team-up removes the headshots for Pierce whenever enabled, which is a trade-off, and it gives you the ability to help your team a little bit in finalizing picks where there's a lot of walls and a lot of barriers just in line. Like, for example, if this was in-game and current patch, you'd be able to pierce through a Devil Dino and still hit the backline. If it's, I'm going to say, I don't even know a support backline right now off the top of my head. I'm going to say Invis plus Jeff, because why not? You'd be able to poke the Invis and Jeff from the other side of the Dino. And the last team up is the Phoenix team up, the most recent one, and the one that has been the game the longest. It is 70 damage, 90 heal, AoE. The heal does not have fall off while not ADS'd, which is something new and not reported on any Wikipedia pages. And it was actually a shadow buffed heal and damage amount compared to announcement, because the wikis and even in-game stats still have it saying 50 damage or 40 damage, 50 heal. It is 70 damage, 90 heal. The heal doesn't have a fall off. Scope and unscope for the heal are the same, but for damage, you need to ADS in order to get the full 70 damage. Still won't have a headshot change, and the cooldown is not for winding up into Phoenix mode, but only winding down back into your raw DPS mode. Basically, the Wikipedias are wrong, and Phoenix is a lovely team up. So, what does that mean, really, for how they fit into her kit? Hawkeye lets her play more into the assassin style, it makes frags easier to hit, and it makes your ultimate actually do something. The Punisher adds group handling, which is meh. Phoenix adds the bonus utility and grants you a bit of a new identity, and it kind of lets you branch into a bit of healing and a bit of assassin work, but you're kind of only meh at doing your job at being isolated in the back and getting picks, because you are very one-dimensional, you don't get your one-taps, and even though you're doing a lot of damage, there's a lot of healing in the game, and there's no real anti-heal systems or anything that are strong enough to support your playstyle. And you are actually a good support if you choose to spec into that, and I'll touch on why supports are a really good balance for snipers a bit later as well, but it's still such an awkward set of conditions to meet in order to do, you're not going to see it happen all too much. Let me talk about the one big meta development that she has had, and it is this kick combo that I was almost alluding to earlier. If you no-scope at someone who's close range diving on you, you kick, you grapple, and then you no-scope them once again without any headshots, you do 310 total damage. Because they are within your range, in order for you to hit them with the kick, you have no fall off, so no scopes are fine, and no scopes are still perfectly accurate, so you are able to do that no problem. And you're going to get 310 damage if you're able to hit the full combo. If you can land your shots, it is an amazing OTK tool, and you can also aim your no scope after your grapple while the grapple animation is going on, which does make it very, very consistent if the diver that you're going against is using all of their movement tools to get in and mismatching cooldowns to get out. It means that you can actually frag very efficiently with it while getting dived, and you can also use your dash to get into really awkward flank spots. If there's only one isolated enemy, you can do your no-scope kick grapple combo on them to completely wipe them out and then claim their old territory. And generally speaking, it just gives you a lot of really good maneuverability around the flanks. It lets you get your frags, it lets you stay a bit defensive, and it means that you can work into the enemy support sightlines, where normally you are going to be the safest because all of your opponent's team is going to be trying to stay in those sightlines to stay with their support. It forces them to be mispositioned a little bit and misaligned, and it gives you a really good spot to be. So the kick combo, pretty relevant. And again, your kick and grapple can be two different targets, so if you want to take out two 250 targets and you're really good at hitting headshots, going for a headshot kick to kill one, and then a grapple headshot in order to kill the second, is absolutely a good way to go about getting your frags. So, when it comes to her character identity, has any of that changed? No, not really. She's still a glass cannon sniper, she's still a ranged poke assassin with very poor defensive utility, but she does have good edge case management. She is good at finishing picks, she's sometimes good at getting heals out, or she can do a touch of death combo very efficiently, and she's still designed for stealth. Basically, she's really good at dealing with edge cases. She's kind of a jack of two traits at any given time, where she can do her assassin job and some other additional piece of utility and nothing else. She's still really easy to dive. She has her touch of death combo, but it's still quite a lot to get going, and the cooldown on it is a 15-second for the kick, which means that once it's gone, you are very susceptible to getting dived on, and your sprint is not fast enough for you to get out of emergency situations. So you're kind of not a master of getting your frags that you want to be into something that Hawkeye would be, or current patch Phoenix and Hela with very quick 2-taps to get frags. And you're not exactly on the other side of the spectrum where you're very highly maneuverable. Your job is kind of just done better by Phoenix, Hela, and even to an extent Hawkeye, as of right now. So, let's talk about the three types of snipers there are. The three games I'm choosing to focus in on: TF2, Paladins, Overwatch, because they are the three games that I have the most experience with and have reviewed the most in order to make sure that I can give you adequate information about them. So, starting off, we have the sniper. Class origins, errors of his class a little bit. He's known for one-taps, and if you were a part of the fix save TF2 movement or anything like that, you're very aware of what the sniper does. He headshots you from wherever with no charge up, ADS normally, but also non-ADS. He will just he will just get rid of you from wherever on the map, and he is very heavily rewarded for good aim, and it makes for a very non-interactive gameplay. He's just very unfun to fight, and very much the way to play against him is to just not play the game. You can't not go into sightlines because everything is a sightline. You can adjust based on where the enemy is trying to position, but he has the ability to have either multiple snipers on a team or just be in very flexible positions over time if he's able to surf off of enemy rockets and things like that. That being said, he does do one thing right. Cooldown-based vulnerability is kind of healthy. The Drawdy gives a good use for intel and a good vulnerability to apply to enemies, and it gives him a bit of self-initiative that makes him very fun to play even when you're getting dove, even though he is rather helpless in a dive situation. So he can enable himself in those situations, and overall, the big thing with him is that as the receiving player, you are helpless. As the active player playing the sniper, you are not helpless. You have all of the power, but you want to try and remove that helplessness from the interaction somehow. That's the big issue with the sniper, and the big reason for that is his one-taps. Let's move on to the original Widow, the charge sniper concept, and we're going to go over this quick, because I'm not as much of an Overwatch person, and I really don't like charge snipers. Why? It gives conditional one-taps. It adds a time to kill without that upsetting feel, which is good, but the counterplay is still overall sightlines, and you can't always just not do sightlines. Like, you have to play the game at some point. She also does have an AoE intel tool through her Widow, or Widow something. I forget what it's called. Widow Bites. That's what they're called. So she does have a map AoE tool, and that is good. And so I want to try and preserve some aspect of that into whatever kits we're working on for our Widow. And last but not least, she has burst movement, which makes her very difficult to catch out of position, and an essential part of counterplay really does have to be being able to punish people for being out of position. But at the same time, granting a bit of burst movement, as long as you're not able to use it to overly enable yourself, might be a little bit healthy, and as long as there's not the risk of a burst one-tap, just for existing with that burst movement, I think it might be fine. So really, to conclude on Widow a little bit, hit scan one-taps are just still miserable. There's no innate counterplay, really. Yes, you can block with shields or bubbles or whatever, but it doesn't really fully fix the issue that you still have to rely entirely on others to try and make situations work, assuming the map isn't designed in your favor, and frankly, Rival's map design is a little all over the place, and I don't want to get into analysis of that right now. However, having one-tap opportunities that are very limited and have a lot of downsides affiliated with them does help viability overall. One-dimensional characters need support to be one-dimensional or need more dimensions overall. Last but not least-ish, again, we'll talk about it, is stealth snipers. My example for this is Strix from Paladins, one of the few characters to go from S tier to C and D tier multiple times in a balance cycle. He cannot one-tap. He whiffs one-taps by hair, just like Black Widow, and even though there is a bit of a bonus ranged chip that he can activate through a flare, you're not going to get the value off of it. He has no burst movement. Instead, he has a stealth option where he can go invisible, but it makes it to where it's really easy to chase him, and even though he's really good at getting into really powerful flank positions, if you're caught out in that flank position, you are going down. And that is exactly what Widow has going on right now. And overall, this version of the character will normally have some sort of intel tools, some sort of get off me ult, and some sort of way to kind of identify where people are. The big thing with stealth snipers like Strix, and the reason that he went S tier, C tier, S tier, C tier twice in one balance cycle, is that you need to make sure that you're not granting them that one tap in order to give them the ability to one, still be somewhat relevant and go on stealthy picks and get good value, but you can't let them always have access to one-taps, or they can just be anywhere and do anything, and if you approach them, you're going to get punished. Let's talk about the secret fourth option of sniper ranges. Ana, flex support in Overwatch. The perfect needs alignment of a sniper, pretty much. You lose your fear of your sightlines because the team needs your vision, enemies can opt into your vision, and you can't really punish them as heavily for it, and your team is constantly getting benefited by your engagement focus. It's the utility that enables your team to go in and fight. It grants you also have pretty good disengage, all things considered. Normally not positioning tools and just ways to get your opponent to stop and chill for a sec. In Ana's case, a dart. And the other thing about both roles is that they need protection from your team. Your team is very aware of the backline management and can tell when they're not getting healed, so they know how to get back, and they have a bit of a trapping kit as supports, where they can survive for a little bit, but don't necessarily have the full world to maneuver around in. And that makes for a very healthy overall design philosophy for a sniper. So does Widow fit any of these categories? Yes, and I don't like it. She is a stealth sniper. She has no escape tools, or no randomness to getting out of places, no guarantees to do her stealthy job, but she does go on flanks. She does get valuable picks from flanks. She doesn't have a one-tap. She can get up in your face and get in range, and she doesn't have the intel tool, which is very big for this type of sniper. She can't one-tap, she doesn't have that external utility of information gathering, and even though she can fix these weird edge cases, the team-ups don't enable herself to do anything, they just grant teammates greater abilities and value out of their DPS. And DPSs need to be able to do more than just enable their team. They need to be able to enable themselves to do their jobs, which is not raw damage, but getting picks. And right now, none of those team-ups really help her in getting those picks. So, do we rework her or no? And my too long didn't read is yes, but no. She is unloved and is bad. She needs balance desperately, either utility or excellence in her role. But if you remove the playstyle of a character, you immediately alienate all of your pre-existing players, and you make it to where they don't want to engage with the new character as much, or that they miss the old character too much and have a more negative reception of your project because of it. A key example would be Boris, aka New Aatrox, a character that was introduced into League of Legends years and years and years ago. And people still talk about the times when there was a pre-rework Aatrox because every single ability and fundamental principle that let Aatrox be Aatrox was removed from the game. It was like they completely removed a character and just added a new character who was borrowing the name instead. And even though in current patch with I think it's Zaheen, but I'm actually not certain, that was added to the game, it makes it to where you're alienating your player base from that original onset, and even if you try to bring them back in by reintroducing a concept elsewhere, it's not the same. At the same time, Widow really is bad. She needs to be self-sufficient in some way, and either you buff her poke in some way that gives her tangible weaknesses and downsides, or you give her utility, or you give her the ability to get out of situations more readily and perform her stealth duties more efficiently. So let's talk about 4 ways to rework her kit. First off, a slight way to rework her kit, you tweak her kick a little bit. You can either increase the damage from 35 to 55, or you could grapple to enemies to apply a vulnerable status to them, so that your burst damage off of your rifle is going to do more, or adding that vulnerable to the kick in general. Or you can make it to where post-grapple, you are able to aim to literally any direction. What do I mean by that? I mean that when you grapple to a target, you are able to move your mouse to aim where Black Widow is looking, and the kick, instead of always kicking away from where Black Widow started, instead kicks in the direction that Black Widow is facing. that is going to make her act like a hook character at that point. Something very similar to the current Chomp off of Devil Dinosaur, or if you, again, play games like Overwatch, Roadhog Hook, Paladins, Makoa Hook. TF2 doesn't really have anything as comparable, but I've already mentioned League of Legends in this little spiel, and I'll do it again. League of Legends with Blitzcrank Hook, or Nautilus Hook, or Swain Grab, and the list goes on and on and on with different examples. Basically, you give a targeted CC where you can aim it in the direction of anything, and you can either get the opponent to be further away from where you want to be, you can move them out of your sightline so you can run away in a more direct path, you can push them into the rest of your team so that you can burst them down more reliably, and overall you just have a more reliable crowd control that doesn't always advantage your opponent. Instead, you are able to kind of take destiny on where they're going. That is the slight tweak to the kit that I would recommend. One of these two features, or two of these couple of features, to either give her the ability to have a burst combo that does significantly more damage. The reason that I chose 55 in particular on the kick is that if you do 55 plus 55, that gets you to 110. 110 plus the 240 gets you to 350. That means any of the 350 team up anchor buffs for HP you are able to deal with very cleanly. And you also get very close to Mr. Fantastic. With a damage buff, you're able to get to that range. So that's why I chose 55. The vulnerable is pretty self-explanatory. I would probably recommend a 15% vulnerable just so that you don't have ludicrous damage, but you still have more reliable combos off of your grapple combo. And the aimable hook just gives you that utility that you desperately need to provide to your team. Next, talking about the major tweak to the kit. The first recommendation would be the kick tweak, which I've already been over. I think that the redirection and hook capability gives you much needed utility, and everything else here is readjusting the kick even more to make it more usable, more flexible, and give you more utility. I want to decrease the radius of the cone in order to make it to where you're able to grapple away from the opponent more easily. Why? Because I want you to be able to use your grapple after the kick on geometry. I want you to be able to aim it to a wall, or aim it to the middle of the air even, or just somewhere. And it makes it to where you can use your kick, knock someone away, and then grapple completely in a different direction just to get out of somewhere sooner and reposition faster. It also means that if you get into a flank, you let off your shot, and you miss, you can use your kick, which is a pretty long windup, but even if you don't hit anything, you're still able to grapple away, reposition, use your dash after that plus your jump, and stealthily get out of there really quickly. It gives you a very quick burst of movement that you can follow up with your regular stealth positioning tools. It doesn't give you extra damage, but it gives you the ability to get away. And in order to encourage that more, I would change the kick cooldown to work in a slightly different way. A 6-second cooldown for just the kick, a plus 9-second cooldown if you grapple to a wall, and a plus 3-second cooldown if you grapple to a player, to encourage you to go in and take fights at a more dynamic and up close and personal pace, to play into that more assassin mentality of what Black Widow is known to be in material like the comics and material like the films, if you'd like to consider it material. It gives her the ability to be much more brawly in close range, but also gives her that safety repositioning tool in order to do her duties as a ranged poke assassin better, and specifically a stealth assassin better. So that is my stealth rework that I would pitch. Next up is the DPS rework, and this one has two brand new abilities that I would like to introduce, and you completely disregard the other two rework concepts and tweak concepts that I would have suggested earlier, because this adds a lot of utility to her, and instead of improving her mobility, improving her self-sustainability, and improving her ability to work around as her role better, these are ways to give her either one-taps or general team utility. First off is the Widow Bite. Widow Bite would be an aimable projectile that you hold to aim. An example would be Overwatch's Wuyong, and I'll show an example of what that looks like in just a second. But you can hold down a primary fire or hold down the cast of the Widow Bite in order to aim it in whatever directions you are actively aiming. Whenever the Widow Bite collides with a player or map geometry, it will start to pulse out, and it will reveal enemies very similar to Black Cat's fire in the current patch of Marvel Rivals. It would have a 15-meter radius, so a slight bit less than Black Cat's fire, and it would last until either broken or 4 seconds. So the health would be around the same, again, as Black Cat's fire, or the 4 seconds would actually be to add a downside to that ability because Black Cat is broken. When opponents are revealed, it would grant Black Widow bonus damage on them in order to give you the ability to one-tap in a very select range. But it would also give you team utility of actually knowing where opponents are, and it means that you can aim it just on a flank in order for you to know when enemies are coming through a flank line to get to you, so you're able to reposition with your stealth tools more efficiently because you have the information on where they are. Now, the big thing with this change is that it would grant you the ability to get your one tap, but the counterplay isn't to stay out of sight lines, it is instead to stay out of the bubble or to focus fire on the bubble. Even if it's only 90 health on this little Widow Bite, it is still redirecting your attention to somewhere else. It might let other assassin characters jump in or dive characters jump in, or in Black Widow's case, it grants you a very, very short window where you're actually able to get your one-tap value out. That is the first idea, and potentially the only idea that you would need to really grant her that extra power and ability damage. And she doesn't have an F ability right now. She is one ability short of most characters in the cast. You can add this very easily to her kit. The other idea is something more experimental, but it grants her the one-tap again. First off, just showing Wuyong's orb a little bit. As you can see, you can aim the orb in all sorts of different directions. I'll go back once again, and you can see that you're able to kind of direct it on the other side of walls and whatnot around corners and target it exactly where you need it to land. If you were to do something like this with the stealth, I'm going to call it the Widow Bite, you're able to redirect it over in all sorts of directions to get into really deep enemy territory for the reveal, or really awkward flank spots that you don't have proper LOS on as Black Widow. Source for that video is Fruit Punch on r/Overwatch if you were curious. The second ability for Widow is holding the reload to overload your rifle. It would be on a 15-second cooldown, and it would be worded in the menus as a passive ability. And what it does is it would reload your sniper to 1 ammo. You can hold down the reload button with a full magazine, with no bullets in your magazine, whatever it is. It would overload your rifle to 1 ammo. It will reveal and vulnerable Black Widow, 20% vulnerability, until the sniper is next reloaded, which means that while your rifle is reloaded, your enemy team will be able to see you. It means that they know exactly where you're coming from, it removes all sense of stealth that you have in any given moment, and it makes you fully reliant on what comes next, because it does 150 to body. It'll revert if any other ability is used. If you use your grappler or whatnot, you will overload your rifle, and it will remove the reveal and the vulnerability. So it means that you can still use your repositioning tools and whatnot. However, it gives you the one tap that you're looking for. 150 to body means that you're hitting 300 headshots, which means that against every single DPS in the game as of right now, other than Mr. Fantastic, every support in the game right now, you get the one-shot headshot at the cost of your opponent no longer needing to worry about your stealth, being able to dive you easier, and the overall casting cost of reload is approximately 1.5 seconds, and so you're on average going to be 3 to 5 seconds revealed and vulnerable, and you're only going to have one shot in that 5-second window, which means that for those 5 seconds, your opponent's entire team doesn't need to worry about your sight lines. They can see where you were, and they can avoid your sight lines by knowing where you are, and they also don't have to worry about the shot itself coming out, because they can kind of just whittle around, and they'll know when the shot comes out. They'll hear an overloaded shot coming out, just like they would hear a normal sniper shot going out. So they know when the shot is released, and it is 5 seconds of safety as long as they don't get hit. But it grants you the one-shot ability that you're looking for without an ability slot, and even though there's a large cooldown to it and a large opportunity cost in revealing yourself, restricting your ammo, making yourself vulnerable, and at reverting if another ability is used, it grants you the one-tap potential that you were looking for. And if you were to take your 150 to body and you were to add on all of your damage modifiers, if you were to add on the 10% from your Widow Bite, if you were to add on the 12% from either Ultron or Mantis, you're getting to 392, which means that you're also now one-tapping Fantastic. You're still not getting over the 400 barrier, and if you stack on an extra buff, you're starting to get close to that barrier, but you're not passing it, which means that you still have a hard damage cap where you can only deal with DPS and down, but you do have your one-tap. That would be how I would rework her as a DPS to grant her the burst potential, grant her the ability to do her stealthy jobs a little bit easier, and grant her a bit more utility overall. Now let's talk about support. I think that the support rework is probably the easiest for you to do with her. If you were to fully rework her, it does alienate her the furthest from her source though. You make her Phoenix mode the default, 70 damage, 90 healing, 3 meter AoE, with the heals having no fall off at any point. What I would also do to make her a more efficient support and to pay off the fact that she doesn't have the damage, you remove the AoE for the rifle, you add a 25-second heal over 1 second to shots from the rifle, and you also make it to where in ADS, DPS can headshot in order to give her some ability to do some damage in order to keep herself safe from approaching divers, if need be. I would also add that her baton swings can heal her for 50% of damage dealt. It's not a lot, but it's a bit more survivability because, again, as a support, you need some built-in survivability tools. In addition, I would add the kick redirect change, so she has a hook-like utility in order to redirect people into directions that she needs. It makes her more of a utility support overall than just a raw healing support because she still has a long interval to healing, and she's still a sniper. She's still very vulnerable in close ranges. In addition, I would probably think about doing the grapple cooldown change. It would be 6 seconds for first kick and plus 9 seconds for the follow-up and or grapple, but I would not let her grapple to the environment because it just grants the support too much maneuverability overall. And I would also, for the support kit, grant her the Widow Bite ability that I had talked about earlier, where you're able to aim it, you're able to put it down when it hits something, and it will reveal enemies at a 10 meter radius instead of 15, so again, a little bit worse than what it would have been as a DPS, but it lasts until broken, and it has a 10% bonus healing to anyone in range of the bite. Again, giving her more healing utility, and stripping back her ability to act as that assassin-style character. That being said, it removes the ultimate poke character from the game. What rework do I think would be best? I think it would be the major tweak. I think it would be the kick changes. It grants more flexible movement overall with the ability to grapple to the environment. It's a more forgiving get off me option because you're able to get them off, redirect yourself fully, and fully go into stealth mode. It makes your flanks significantly more efficient with the ability to get out of problematic scenarios. It makes it to where your team has utility beyond DPS by being able to do that hook maneuver with her kick and grapple, and it gives her more efficient overall burst movement that will let her do her stealthy job better as either a flanker, as a backline support, as a dive evader. It gives her the ability to do her job more efficiently without buffing her raw damage and stat potential. And it means that she is a more flexible and versatile character that doesn't rely on a team comp as much, and isn't just someone who's going to exist there to take the ultimate picks 24/7. And it'll also alienate the character the least from their current kit. All that happens is that their kick gets a lot of buffs, but you can still play her exactly the same way you would right now, with a more efficient overall playstyle, and it keeps her identity unchanged. And that is all I have to say about the Black Widow rework ideas that I have in mind. I think she only needs a light tweak, and that'll be okay. last but not least, I'm just going to introduce myself for those of you who are new here. The name's Gazapniak. I normally play Pokemon and other TCGs too. I also do a lot of first-person shooters, tech FPSs, and hero shooters. I do platform fighters as well. I enjoy other things, roller coasters, I guess. I don't know. Normally, on TCG videos, I list a whole bunch of different things that kind of identify me as a player. This doesn't really work in the format, but I want you guys to know that I do a whole lot of other things. If you have ideas on other things you want to do, why don't you leave something down in the comments? And while you're there, be sure to subscribe if you want new uploads. You can hype the video if you're on mobile. You can like the video if you're not. And you can follow some of my other socials as well. That'll get you more in touch with me on a personal level. Catch me live in order to talk about whatever situations you think are coming up. For example, if you think I'm stupid and Black Widow's reworks are stupid, by all means let me know. It'll improve my skill set as a game designer, and it'll let your ideas be heard better. You can also talk directly to me through the Discord. All links will be in the description, including the slide deck, and that is how I would fix Black Widow in Marvel Rivals. Thank you guys very much for coming out. I know this is one of my longer videos to date, and it is unedited and rambly like most of my videos, but if you want to see some proof of concept balance schematics on how any of this would work out, you can let me know. I can see what I can do in order to get things working, or maybe I could even take the character template and see if I can work an Overwatch workshop in order to get something kind of sort of working, assuming that Overwatch's workshop still works. That being said, that's all I have time for today. It is currently 2:30 a.m. because I procrastinated finalizing the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this little blooper reel after the fact, and I'll catch you guys all later. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll catch you later on.